and inside of there we are going to write something in a moment. Now what we've done here is we've taken the element that we've specified in the function and return or placed it inside of here. Usually we would do something like p, but because we've already fed in the element, we can just substitute the variable name in there. Now the part of the CSS that we need to actually to get from the paragraph is the font size. So we can simply specify in here font size. Let's go ahead and alert this current variable out and see what we get when we click on one of these links. So we're going to click on one of these links and we're going to be returned with the font size currently set for these paragraphs. So at the moment you can see it shows 16px. Now we need to find a way to add or subtract a value from this number 16 in order to make the text smaller or the text bigger. And the problem is that we've got this px in the way. So what we can do is inside of our text editor we can actually wrap this whole piece of code just here inside the parseInt function, and this will essentially essentially cast this value to an integer. So we're still going to alert out this current variable. However, now that we've used parseInt, it will remove the px part of the string. So now we have an integer of 16. So now we can start adding or subtracting values on depending on which button we've pressed. So down here we'll get rid of alert and we'll create an if statement to perform a calculation based on whether smaller or bigger has been fed into this function. So I'm going to say if size is equal to, remember size is the text we fed in here, smaller or bigger. If it's equal to smaller, we need to perform one block. Otherwise, if the size is equal to bigger, we want to perform a different block. So inside of the first block, we want to create a new variable, and this is going to be called new_size. And that's going to be equal to current minus 1. We're going to minus 1 pixel every time. We could put 2, I suppose, that would make it a bit better to use. Now if the text size has been specified as bigger, i.e. the bigger link has been selected, we need to again create a new variable called new size, and this is going to be equal to current, but this time plus 2. So if we are clicking the smaller link, we're calling this function with the elements that we want to change the size of, and we want to make them smaller. So when we come in here, we get the current size cast to an int, and then we check and perform a calculation based on whether it's smaller or bigger that we want to go. And that's obviously minus 2 and plus 2. Okay, so after this if statement, we want to change the element CSS. Remember again, we're using the element that we fed in, which is the paragraph tags or paragraph element. And we want to change the font size in here. So this is going to be font size. Now we want to change this to the new size, but then we want to also include the textual px on the end of this. So just putting new size here won't actually work, because we need to then append on px. So now it conforms to CSS. Okay, so let's just run through this quickly. On index.php we have these two links, smaller and bigger. When we click smaller or when we click bigger, we have two event handlers here, this one here and this one here. If we click smaller, we send the p to the change size function, and we give it the value of smaller for this size variable here, and the same with bigger. We work out the current size, we then check whether we want to say smaller or bigger, and we either minus if it's smaller or plus if it's bigger. Then we reapply the new size plus the px that we removed with this parseInt function back to the font size CSS style. Okay, so let's go ahead and test this out now. We've got the text as it normally is. Let's go ahead and click bigger. You can see that the font size has automatically been increased by 2 pixels. We can do this again and again and again to make these bigger. Now you'll notice that it's only changing the size of these paragraphs because the selector that we used was for paragraphs. And again, we can go ahead and make these smaller and smaller and smaller until they're essentially unreadable and gone. So that's how to use selectors inside of a function. We've passed an element through a function, and this is a nifty little piece of code that will let you increase and decrease the font size on a page.